2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Hour 2, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, along with Phil Kornblut, Professor Tom Hayes, Will Pelagic here with you. The Clemson Tiger baseball team has put up 6 in the top of the third. They lead Pittsburgh 6-1. South Carolina and Texas A&M getting underway at 7:30. No T.J. Hopkins for South Carolina, although he did make the trip, and we were told earlier this week he is available. We're going to talk to USC softball coach Bev Smith in about 15 minutes, and we'll also talk to Mike Morgan and the money coach Fran Halloran also this hour. Corn, you had some more notes from the recruiting trail.
Yeah, we're going to punish Morgan, make him listen to the recruiting here for being late. Clemson is trying to entice offensive lineman Jesse Hansen of Delville, Virginia, to come their way. He's a Virginia Tech commitment, but his parents are Clemson grads, and he grew up a Clemson fan. So they are working him, trying to get him switched over. He will likely come in for the all-in cookout this summer, which could be huge. Right now, though, he's still sticking with his commitment to Virginia Tech. One-time Clemson target linebacker Jalen Scott committed to NC State. Clemson offered offensive lineman Hunter Rayburn, Pensacola, Florida, and 2020 linebacker Stephen Dix of Orlando. USC offered 2020 running back Larry Hill of Palm Bay, Florida. 2020 quarterback Luke Doty of Myrtle Beach was offered by Ole Miss. Defensive back Cam Smith of Westwood offered by Maryland. Receiver Ramel Keaton, Marietta, Georgia, who had USC and Clemson on a short list, committed to Tennessee. Basketball, USC target 6'10" Casey Izagwu, GTA Prep Canada, committed to UTEP. Alabama, the latest to reach out to 2019 6'6" Juwan Gary of Gray Collegiate. An offer is likely in the near future. And as we talked earlier, former North Carolina guard Jalik Felton of Mullins and Gray Collegiate tweeted today that he'll make a decision on his future plans next month.
Mike Morgan's appearance on Sports Talk brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Their mortgage team more equipped than ever to help you with the mortgage process. FoundersFCU.com/mortgage to apply today, whether you're buying or refinancing. And by BP Skinner Clothiers. People nationwide get their custom-made suits and accessories from Brent Skinner, the best in suits, shirts, pants, shoes, and more available to you. Located in Columbia, in the Vista. No matter where you are, Brent will come to you. BPSkinnerClothiers.com to set up an appointment.
All right, we welcome in Mike Morgan on the move as we hit the end of the college baseball regular season, looking into the tournament next week. So I know you're getting all ready for that, Mike. And what do you think of this SEC race as we head down the stretch? There can still be a great deal of movement here based on the results of the games this weekend.
Yeah, I think number one, I mean, what we've known for quite some time now is that Florida's in a class of its own. And then number two, I think Arkansas and Ole Miss are not that far behind. And then when you go 4 through about 9 or 10, there's not a whole lot separating those teams. There really isn't. And so, you know, somebody's going to have a 10 seed label to them in Hoover for the SEC tournament versus, say, a number 4 seed. And that sounds like just a huge difference between the two, but it's really not. I think the only drama that's going to come out of the actual end of the season in the SEC tournament is going to be some bubble teams. Do they get in? Do they not get in? I think the SEC is in really good shape for 10. There's a possibility of 11 bids. But for the most part, a lot of the drama is at the bottom and not at the top, because the top we've kind of known pretty much all season long.
South Carolina, Texas A&M getting underway tonight out in College Station at 7:30. Handicap that series for us.
I've had both teams. I think that, when South Carolina is pitching right, which they have been for the better part of the last month of the season, their pitching is on par with the Texas A&M, which for much of the year was right at the top or near the top in staff ERA, to me, one of the most important numbers and indicators in terms of a team that actually has a chance to go to the World Series. I think offensively at home, that Texas A&M might have an advantage there. I think they've been more consistent at the plate. Braden Shoemake is one of the best hitters in this league, and Texas A&M is a very difficult place to play. It's one of the better home field advantages. I think if you go in there, if you're South Carolina, you try to take at least 1 out of 3. If you get 2 out of 3, it's gravy. You want to keep that series victory alive streak going on in conference play. But I think it's a really good matchup against two teams that I both expect will be in the NCAA tournament.
How likely do you think they get a top four? They got to at least do a little scoreboard watching with Ole Miss, Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, and LSU Auburn, among others.
A top four seed for Hoover, you mean?
First, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be tough because the teams you mentioned certainly are in a good spot. You'd certainly have to win the series, I think, to go in there. When it's all said and done, who knows? You might have to even sweep, which is a pretty tall order against, again, a tough team to beat at Bluebell Park. But it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. You hit on a key point, though, and that is this. You're not winning the SEC tournament if you don't get that first day bye. It's just the tournament is difficult enough to win, and it's so taxing on your pitching staff. But when you have to play that extra day and use extra arms, I don't know if we're ever going to see a team that has to play on that Tuesday go on to win the SEC tournament.
Well, you look at South Carolina, and as I said, when they were 9-9, I thought they needed to win 16 games to get into postseason. Do they still need to do some damage in the tournament to solidify their position, or if they get that one win this weekend, they'll be right there?
I don't even think they need 16, Pro. I mean, I think the way the SEC is this year, if you're 15-15, chances are you're getting in. I mean, unless you just have a disastrous RPI. And I think you'll see at least one team under 500 in conference play. And I know this rubs a lot of people the wrong way. There's just something that fundamentally feels wrong when you've got a sub-500 conference team that makes the tournament. But that's been the case several times over the years in the SEC. A number of 14-16, 13 and 17 teams have made it in time. So, if South Carolina gets to 15-15, they're in.
Talking with Mike Morgan on the Move about college baseball. What about this Duke situation? Having a great year, going to be a high seed. Do you think the committee will let them host in that dinky little ballpark, or will they put them somewhere else as a number one seed? Say maybe a Coastal Carolina, make them a 2 seed, make Duke the 1 seed, but play at Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, this is the part of the equation I hate. And you might be more up to speed on this than I am. So they definitely could not play in the minor league park.
Correct.
There, it's occupied. That's next weekend. Yes.
Weekend, yeah. I hate that. Number one, it's a great ballpark. I've called some games there in the past, including the ACC championship. And number two, Duke has earned the right to host. But that's always a very delicate question. We've seen this before, where teams that would have hosted based on their credentials did not because of the ballpark. And frankly, awarding a road team with the number 1 seed, there's really no advantage to that. I mean, a 1 or a 2 doesn't really matter a whole lot. What matters is where you're playing. So that would obviously be detrimental to Duke's cause. But what little I know about their actual ballpark, it is not regional host worthy. Mm-hmm. Unless something has changed significantly in the last couple of years.
You got games this weekend?
You know what? I have a weekend off,
oh.
So I'm going to cherish it. I'm going to hug it. I'm going to caress it.
Huh.
I'm going to relax and do what normal people do, and get back to the road next week.
Last time you hugged and caressed and cherished something, I think it hit you in the face. So be careful.
Will you be in Hoover or Durham next week, Mike?
I will be in neither, actually. I'm going to California. I've got a couple of games out on the left coast, including Cal State Fullerton, who made it to Omaha last year, taking on Long Beach State. That's kind of a rematch of that super regional from a year ago. So getting a more of a taste of life out west, little California action.
Well, you were out there earlier in the year, weren't you?
I was. I was in, I guess you would call that Central California. This will be Southern California.
Dirtbag country.
We are... We are Mike Morgan stalkers here on Sports Talk. We know your every move.
Well, I tell you what.
I'm going to a Dodger game next week if you'd like to.
I will tell you this. Great. Since Corn hijacks about the Yankees, quick question. This young Braves team, do they have staying power?
Got 15 seconds.
Appreciate the warning. They have the power to win a lot of games, but not be in the postseason.
Send us some Farmer John hot dogs while you're out there also.
Absolutely. I'll bring them back. First class certified mail.
That is Mike Morgan, SEC Network and ESPN, joining us here on Sports Talk. We'll talk to the head coach of South Carolina softball, Bev Smith, as their team gets to host a regional this weekend next.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. As I said earlier in the hour, it's 6-1 Clemson. They're now in the top of the fourth inning. Looks like they're doing their due diligence of waxing Pittsburgh. South Carolina and Texas A&M getting underway here in a couple of moments. You have some other scores you want to go over?
Indeed. We've got state teams, ACC, SEC teams, of course, playing. Asheville leading Charleston Southern 3-1 fifth. Wofford, East Tennessee 1-1 fifth. Wofford having a good year still, 33-20. 13-8 in the league. Florida State leading NC State 2-0, top of the fourth. Big for Clemson, trying to win the division and the overall championship. Louisville beating Notre Dame 3-1, top of the fourth. The Citadel and Mercer are 2-2, bottom of the third. That's the second of two. The Bulldogs lost the opener 6-3. High Point beat Presbyterian today 6-0. Wake Forest over Virginia 7-3. Liberty Winthrop scoreless, bottom of the first. And let's see, Boston College, Miami scoreless, bottom of the first. All these scores, all these teams just now getting underway, these games just now getting underway, so they are scoreless. Coastal and Appalachian in a rain delay up in the mountains. Charleston and Wilmington playing as well. No score in on that one.
It is our pleasure to welcome in from the South Carolina Gamecock softball team, their head coach, Beverly Smith. They're hosting a regional at Beckham Field this weekend in the NCAA softball tournament. UNC Greensboro, Liberty, and Hofstra also involved. Coach, thanks so much for being back on with us. Congratulations on the hosting of the regional.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I guess what makes this particular setting different for your team? I know it's something you guys have gone through before, but obviously being at home, there's a decided advantage in that.
Yeah, the last 5 years we've been on the road, so I am happy for us to have our show here in front of our Gamecock fans, and certainly to showcase our beautiful facilities to the national audience on TV.
What do you think of the field, Coach, that you'll host, and just the way the pairings line up for you moving forward in the tournament? What'd you think when you looked at that draw and said, okay, this is what we've got?
Well, certainly I was super proud to be number 9 national seed. So, we achieved our goal of being at home. And then when you can zoom out and look at our field, we've really got a tough draw. I don't think there's another regional that's got 4 40-win teams in the regional. So I know some fans might not identify with the names that are here, but all of these teams have been successful and have won a lot of games this year. So I think we've got a really competitive regional. Did
your guys get over the loss in the SEC championship game, tight ball game? You had the early lead. Disappointing loss for you, I'm sure. Did they get over that quickly and get focused on the task ahead?
Yeah, I tell you, I was really proud of the way our team performed in the SEC tournament, and certainly wish we could get that pitch back. But what I think we took from it is we faced Florida during the season a 3-game set, and really didn't play well. And I think you go into the championship game against Florida and recognize we're one pitch away from being tournament champs. It really made us feel how much we've grown and continued to improve. So for me, I think we're playing great ball right now as we displayed in the SEC tournament. And so when we got back, it was a late night getting back from the tournament, but all the players were really excited to see us be a national host and host at home, which is a goal we had been talking about all season long.
As you played in the SEC tournament and going forward, obviously the teams have good pitching, and your team has been monstrous with the home run ball this year. Do you feel a sense of how the teams, even in the SEC tournament, began maybe changing their pitching style toward you guys so you couldn't display your power?
Well, I think at this time of year we're going to face a lot of great pitching, and I think the difference is going to be made on defense. Honestly, I think you've got to pitch well and contain the other team's offense. So I think if we can minimize their offense, we recognize we'll always have a chance with ours with the long ball, because we certainly have 8 or 9 players who can take it out of the park. But when you get to postseason play, you're going to face some really good pitching, and you may only get to score 1 or 2 runs a game. So I just think our team enters with a lot of confidence knowing we can score multiple ways.
In the circle, obviously, as we're talking with Bev Smith, the head coach of South Carolina softball, you have 3 very viable options for starting. Most teams are lucky to have 1 and or 2, but you have been comfortable with 3 different pitchers. You showcased that last week. How much does that help you guys going forward? And how will you, I guess, use your pitching this week? How will you showcase that?
Yeah, I think we're really fortunate to have 3, and our team does not care who's on the mound, which is the nice part. But I think particularly when you talk about tournament play, to have 3 available arms, I think to have somebody fresh all the time, where other teams may just have to rely on their number 1. We've got 3 with quality experience and really different looks. So for me, I think we can match up our pitchers best with our opponents. So they all look different in the circle. So I think we'll be able to really set up some good matchups.
Certainly not to split it up between the men and the women. I mean, you're all Gamecocks, but as part of the women's side of the athletic scheme over at USC, you look at the various success of the women's teams at USC this academic year. How do you feel to be a part of what you and your fellow women's coaches at USC have been able to develop in terms of nationally ranked and nationally prominent programs?
I tell you, it's been fantastic to be part of the program. I think, I go back to when I first got here, and Coach Tanner and the baseball team were in Omaha, and you look at the media exposure that has. Hey, there's our baseball team, and then the football team was rolling. And I just think what you've seen is South Carolina athletics improve as a whole. So even in the women's programs have just stepped up as well. So it was fun to watch women's soccer this year, and obviously to watch Coach Staley win a national title. I just think you're seeing South Carolina athletics more and more in the media, and every program has continued to grow.
And reading about your team this week and the interviews that you've done and things of that nature, I know you talked with some folks about the challenge that you throw out there to anybody who wants to face you at the plates. I want to offer up our own Will Pelagic as a sacrificial lamb to represent Sports Talk out there.
Absolutely not.
It's perfect. It's only going to cost you a Starbucks coffee. It's easy.
Oh, my.
Easy.
Now, do you have to get a hit or just make contact?
You only owe me coffee if you strike out.
Oh, okay.
So if you make contact, I would consider that a win. But if you strike out, then you're going to have to buy me a cup
Does a
of
foul
coffee.
count? Does a foul count as contact, or it has to be contact and fair play?
Yeah, you can count anything you want. I'm just going for strikeout.
Corn doesn't know this, but I actually faced legendary Missouri softball pitcher Chelsea Thomas once in the circle. That was enough for me.
Oh.
That was enough for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would keep from going back in the box. I can see that.
No, I need to know what your average fastball is clocked at.
Well, I'm old now, so I'm gonna tell you it's not fast, but I might get you with the movement.
Well, speaking of speed, you said that when you get into postseason, runs will be at a premium. So do you see your team getting on being more aggressive or less aggressive on the base paths?
I think, truthfully, we're not a team that steals a lot of bases. I think we've really relied on our hitters to do damage at the plate. So I think our kids have been smart, aggressive all season, but we're not a team that steals a lot of bases. We're not particularly fast, but we have a ton of confidence in terms of getting people on base and then the ability to knock them in.
South Carolina softball coach Bev Smith, again, 7:30 on Friday night, and then we'll see what happens from there. They play UNC Greensboro to start. Also, Liberty and Hofstra are involved. Thank you so much, Coach. We look forward to seeing how it happens.
Thanks so much. I appreciate your time.
As Bev Smith joining us here on Sports Talk. Yeah, well, she did a thing with the media, Chelsea Thomas did when we were at Missouri, and basically faced everybody in the indoor facility there, and nobody got a hit.
Yeah. Well, that's not fair. First of all, what's the
It's
the
45 feet.
Yeah, that's not fair. Even though the ball's bigger.
So 45 feet, it comes at you
really
very fast.
Yeah.
And because the ball's a little bit larger, it provides more of an optical illusion to the human eye when it comes
and that thing moves now. It's not. It moves now.
It's just past you before you can react.
You can't even.
You
almost have to think you're swinging.
I offer up Teddy Hefner. If you're chickening out, I'll offer up Teddy Hefner.
I'm not chickening. I just know where I stand. Money Coach is next.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
I've been waiting for this interview all week after we found out the news on Monday from the Supreme Court's decision on gambling.
Mm-hmm.
The Money Coach Fran Halloran joins us, and I'm guessing, Corn, that's where he would like to start.
Coach Fran's Casino coming to a locale near you.
Well, guys, I do want to discuss that, by the way. Good evening to you all. Hope your Thursday has been great so far. I do want to discuss that because I think that is really something that is going to come down. We're going to have to make a decision here in South Carolina, and I wonder where our legislature will be on this.
Mm-hmm.
Will we allow sports betting in the Palmetto State? What do you guys think about that?
But you are a financial consultant, and so you advise people how to protect their money and grow their money and save their money. Can you advise anybody to get involved in gambling?
I'm not a gambler myself, Phil. I mean, do I have a little fun occasionally with the pools at an office or something like that? Of course, that's all fun and games, but there's a lot of money to be made. I mean, just if you'll recall back during March Madness, we talked about the fact that March Madness has some $150 billion wagered on it at any given time, with a B now. That's a big number. If it's regulated by the government, well, the government stands to get a quarter of that at any given time. That's a lot of revenue. That's a lot of revenue for the states. And I can't imagine that in this day and age where no one wants higher taxes, nobody wants higher taxes, nobody, except crazy people, right? Just be honest about that. Crazy people think take some more money from all of us, and they're crazy. I'm sorry, it's just crazy. Nobody wants higher taxes. The next best thing then is to start allowing some businesses to be owned and operated that have historically been illegal. Look at what's going on in Colorado with marijuana, right? I realize this isn't an illegal drug, if you will, but it has been an act, a practice that has been illegal for, well, forever. Forever. I don't know how states are going to say no to this revenue unless they're just going to be hypocrites, because here in South Carolina, we already have legalized gambling. It's called the lottery. And the state has a monopoly on it, if you think about it, because they made all other forms of gambling illegal. The only way you can gamble is to do the lottery.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because when does it get down to the state legislature? And I know they want to appease voters who have maybe some moral standards against gambling, but when does survival mode economically comes into play? Because let's remember, South Carolina really started to lean heavily toward the lottery because a lot of the citizens in the state were journeying across the border to Georgia to play their lottery.
Right.
And then
Georgia and North Carolina.
And then North Carolina,
right.
Yeah, North Carolina saw what we were doing, and they said, "Wonder why these people in Charlotte driving down to Rock Hill every day." Well, because they have a lot.
North Carolina did.
So North Carolina had to have one. So
that's right.
If the states around you have legal gambling, aren't you committing economic suicide if you don't get into the game, so to speak?
I think you raised two really good points here, Pro. The first is, yes, you are committing economic suicide because everyone around you is going to allow it. But secondly, and you mentioned this, there are going to be a whole lot of people who are going to take the moral high ground here and say, oh, well, we can't do this. This isn't good for South Carolina. We can't handle this. This is morally unacceptable. And
Money Coach, you're doing a fantastic impression of some of my mentions on Twitter after I wrote my column about this.
I wasn't going to say anything, but you picked up on that, didn't you?
Yes.
My point is, and I'm a firm believer in this, you can't legislate morality. You absolutely can't do it. People, including those men and women who are going to say those kind of things, they are going to be, frankly, backdoor hypocrites. We have got to look at this from an economic standpoint. Heck, really, the state already, as I said, has gambling, and we go so far as to put ads on TV that say, the games are not really for gambling. It's for fun. Please, if you have a problem, call us. We want to help you with this addiction. Really? Come on.
And USC and Clemson will gladly take the money from the education lottery to advertise, don't they?
Hey, listen, everybody will take the money from the lottery. Everyone will take it. Hey, I've never bought a lottery ticket, but I'm probably the only guy in the state who won $3 on the lottery, even though I never played it.
But
I found a scratch off that hadn't been scratched off. I walked it back into the store. The guy behind the counter said, "You may as well play it." I scratched off. He said, "You won $3. You want more tickets?" I said, "Heck no, give me my $3. I'm ahead of the game."
USC, Texas A&M scoreless going to the bottom of the first in College Station. But really, I mean, you're a guy that deals with the stock market. I mean, the stock market, investing money is a gamble. There's no guarantee you're going to get your money back. You might put $100 in hoping to make 200 and come out with zero. I mean, that's the risk. It's just like that's legal gambling right there when you think about it.
Absolutely right. It is legal gambling, and it is sneaky and tough. And the simplest forms of investing are pretty easy to understand. But when you get into the real intricate parts of derivative investing, that's when you really can get lost in the weeds because it's so complicated. Only the brainiacs who invented it really understand it. So you're right. It is legal gambling, legalized gambling, unless you buy an NFL franchise.
Yeah.
Yes, and
I don't know how much time we got.
We got about 3 minutes. I know you wanted to talk about the Panthers sale.
Well, let me just talk about this Panthers thing because Phil, you brought up a great point. The stock market and investing is really just legalized gambling, no doubt about it, unless you buy an NFL franchise. Because David Tepper, who just bought the Panthers for $2.275 billion,
and he won't miss it because he's worth 11.2.
Well, you know, to your point there, Phil, $2.275 million. That is 19.4% of his net worth.
You mean billion?
Billion. That's right. That's right. Billion. I may have said million. I apologize. But my point here is let's put this in perspective. Pro probably has lots and lots of money in his 401k, but let's just say he's like me and Corn, and we only got about $100,000. This means, right? This means that Pro would have a position in a mutual fund inside his 401k that's got about $19,400 in it. That's not a big position in a mutual fund on a $100,000 401k. It's not a big position when you've got $11.7 billion and you just bought a football franchise for $2.275 billion. And the money-making part of it is this. Do you have any idea what the rate of return has been for Jerry Richardson over the 25 years he's owned the Panthers?
Tell us.
This is going to blow your mind, guys. He has made, on average, 45.1% interest every single year he's owned the Panthers.
That's good.
That's good. It's phenomenal.
Well, can we marry the
$206 million?
Yeah.
Can we marry the two together? If we have extensive legalized gambling, how much would that build up the net worth of say a professional franchise, or will it?
Oh yeah. Well, look here. If Tepper just makes 10% a year, just 10%. If he only makes a quarter of what Jerry Richardson made, he's going to make where's my number here? It's astronomical. I can't even find it. $2.53 million a year. That's what he'll make a year on 10%. If you throw in the betting world, sports betting, the numbers just get more astronomical. It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge.
Throw out your info here in our last 15 seconds, Coach.
888-779-2557. Higgins and Halloran, Financial Group, guys. We're here to help you with your money.
Fran's Casino coming to a place near you.
Thanks, guys.
Get it ready. A lot of roulette and everything else.
We'll hear the first comments from the NBA Combine from Gamecocks forward Brian Bowen next.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Braden Shoemake of Texas A&M has homered to give the Aggies a 2-0 lead on South Carolina. That game in the bottom of the first inning at Bluebell Field in College Station, one of the best baseball fields in the country outside of the state of South Carolina. Clemson 7, Pittsburgh 1. That is in the bottom of the fifth inning. Clemson scored 6 in the third and 1 in the fourth to take that lead on the Panthers. Also right now, Auburn a 4-0 lead on LSU. Arkansas and Georgia are tied at 2. That game is in the second. Ole Miss and Alabama 1-1 in the bottom of the third. Those are games of Gamecock significance. Byron Nelson Classic this weekend getting underway in Dallas. Mark Leishman shot Will Polajic's old football number, 61, -10. He has a 3-shot lead over J.J. Spahn and Jimmy Walker. Clemson Sam Saunders in the leaderboard, 4 back at 6 under par, as is Jonathan Bird, Billy Haas at -4, Jordan Spieth, Ben Martin at in that tournament as well. Spieth is -2 in his home state.
And a few more baseball scores in state. Mercer beat the Citadel 6-3, the first of 2. They're playing the second game now, and it's the Bulldogs leading 4-2 over the Bears, playing down in Macon. Coastal and Appalachian in a rain delay. Charleston and Wilmington, big series here in the CAA, and they are scoreless in the third. And it's a Duke over Georgia Tech, 1-0. Miami leading Boston College 2-0. And Liberty and Winthrop on top of Liberty, 1-0, bottom of the third.
800-956-7266. Let's go to Billy, who's listening in Greenville. Billy, welcome into Sports Talk, pal.
Hey, how are you doing?
Well, what's up?
Yeah, I'm reading the Big Spur, and they had an article there with Frank Martin, and he was talking pretty much about how hard he's found it to recruit in South Carolina. And I just wanted to get y'all perspective, an objective perspective. Has the is it some things that you feel they are doing wrong, or is it just the nature of the beast with USC basketball?
I think it's the situation that he faces and Brad Brownell faces as well. Difficult jobs in football-favored states where you every so often you have a year where you are just blessed with tremendous basketball talent. And these guys travel on these travel teams, and then they're scouted by the blue blood programs, and they go and visit those programs, and they see what basketball in a big-time setting is all about. I mean, look, lipstick on a pig is still a pig. And I'm not saying Carolina and Clemson basketball are the equivalent of a pig. But what I'm saying
relative
is,
to what you're dealing with in North Carolina, they are.
Exactly. It's still, and people who grow up, and part of the problem is when you grow up in the state, you follow the sports pages and the shows, and you know what's going on. That's why you can get a player from Canada or a player from the West Coast, somebody not as familiar with what's going on in the state of South Carolina and the view of things here, and all they know is what the recruiters tell them, and they buy into it. They've got the great facilities, and if you come to a game in January and the team's competitive, you're going to have excellent fan support. Don't come to a game in December because usually it's against a bad opponent, and there's just not the interest. The students are gone. Fans aren't there. They're busy with the bowl game or whatever the case may be. That's not the case, though, when you go to the traditional programs and your elite players, and the times when we have these elite players in the state, and they go to North Carolina and Duke, and they grow up wanting to go to those schools, it makes it hard for Martin and Brownell to keep those guys in state.
And Billy, the easiest way to explain it to you in just a basic sense is watch when South Carolina and Tennessee and Georgia go into North Carolina for one of North Carolina's top football players and see what those guys do.
Or
baseball. And those guys come out of the state.
But let me just say this as a forewarning to the players in the state. For whatever reason, there are exceptions. Ray Allen was an exception. And I'm not saying they all fail when they leave the state and go elsewhere. Middleton, who went to Texas A&M. Problem was he wasn't recruited. Problem with Ray Allen was he wasn't recruited by the schools in South Carolina very hard. And they go out of state and they do a great job.
He was very vocal about that in his Hall of Fame interviews.
Yeah, but look at some of the guys who go to North Carolina. and sit on the bench and end up transferring back to the state of South Carolina. And like Larry Davis is a fine example. You look at Seventh Woods. He hasn't been able to smell the floor at North Carolina. Jalik Felton goes to North Carolina, plays a little bit, then he gets into an issue there and has to leave. There's now, who was the big guy a couple of years ago? He's now in the league, tall, skinny guy from Edisto. He did well at North Carolina, but it took him a couple of years.
Johnson, was it?
What was his name? He's in the league now.
I think it was Johnson, wasn't it?
Bryce Johnson.
Bryce Johnson.
Yeah. So he's an example of one that, and we'll see what we'll see what Zion Williamson does at Duke now that he's going to step into that kingdom.
This is again the easiest way to answer the question. You cannot manufacture the kind of tradition that they have on Tobacco Road. You just can't do that.
And they can't do it in football.
Exactly.
That's the big difference. You go to a football game in Chapel Hill or even Raleigh.
You can't create Death Valley. You can't create Williams-Brice Stadium on a Saturday afternoon.
That's why they do well. That's why the football coaches in North Carolina are sort of like the basketball coaches here when it comes to losing talent. You know?
It's crazy.
Brian Bowen,
speaking at the NBA Combine, thanks to the state newspaper for posting this. Here's a little bit from what he had to say after his workout today in Chicago.
It's still an ongoing process. I'm just focusing, on this stuff right now, my combine stuff right now, and my lawyer and the score. It's still a process, so they're going through that right now. So they just let me know what's going to happen soon.
I assume that has to weigh a lot on your decision on what you're going to do.
Right, of course. It'll be good to have a couple options, whether to stay in the draft or to go back to school. But it comes down to it, I don't have the chance to go back to school, and I just make my jump.
What indications of the NCAA giving you about your eligibility and where your case would be if you end up choosing to go back to South Carolina?
I haven't got any in-depth details, honestly. I'm just hearing the minimal and being given the minimal. It's just we're really just on their time, honestly. So, my lawyer, like I said, my lawyer in the school, they're dealing with it on the compliance office. So just working on it.
Who's your lawyer right now?
Jason Stetson.
Okay. Out of where?
He's out of Miami.
He's out of Miami. So.
Both Jason and Frank have said that how much you've enjoyed your experience at South Carolina, that if options were on the table, you might lean toward coming back. What has your experience been like at South Carolina?
Oh, it's been great. They've helped me. I was going through a lot at the time when I was, looking to transfer, and that's really a reason why I picked the school. Frank Martin, he's a great person overall. He's a great human being. The compliance office, the president of the school, the athletic director, they're all on board to help me out. And it's been truly a blessing, for them to help me out as much as they do.
Would you probably lean back more toward going back to school?
Not really sure. We're not really sure. Just have to wait out my process, go through the combine, and we'll see what happens from there. So.
That's Brian Bowen. I don't like to draw conclusions, but it's hard to see with this being in the kind of limbo that it is. It's hard to see him coming back.
I've said it from the beginning. He's not going to play at South Carolina.
That'd be a hard thing to do, especially if you're being told you're going to at least be drafted.
First round or second round?
Doesn't matter. You're getting paid one way or the other. Getting paid versus not playing. I mean, this is not a typical situation. See, if he had gotten cleared or whatever, and you're a second round pick or whatever, you come back, you play your season, you help your draft stock. You don't even know if you're going to have the opportunity to up your draft stock.
That's the big key, because you could tell by just looking at him, he is not as tall as he's going to be. You can almost tell that. And I think people have told him he needs 1 year in the weight room, which is why I think he wanted to play that 1 year of college basketball. But now he'll have to do it.
He's got a lawyer. He's at the combine. He's got the NBA people now in his ears. I don't see it happening for South Carolina with him.
But maybe his just presence with South Carolina helps them with a player down the road, because if you get one to come, maybe some will follow, and that could help the relations.
You got him to come under some extreme, strange circumstances. So not having him on the roster looks like it could be a long year for Gamecocks basketball.
A&M leads the Gamecocks.
You never had him, though. That's the key point.
But you were hoping, and you were counting.
But you never had him.
I'd rather love once than not have the one you lost.